Hey everyone, thanks very much for listening into my webinar, which is How to Be Effective While Working from Home. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you should be able to sit down at your home office desk in the morning and easily work all day. Without the built-in discipline of natural breaks like in your office, things can definitely and easily fall apart. So it's up to you to build the best way for yourself to work remotely. Technology has made it increasingly easier for us to work remotely. The challenge becomes motivating yourself to jump out of bed, get ready for the day, take that extra time to plan your day, and optimize your success. Today I'll go over some of my suggestions for effectively working remotely from home, along with some etiquette tips and some best practices to get you thinking about how you can manage yourself. Even though most people love working remotely, or at least the idea of working from home, remote work does present a lot of challenges. It's easy to find yourself being challenged, especially if you're new to it. So this is often a huge cultural shift, and we need to take into account that this is inevitable in these times. But the tools aren't enough to make remote work work. There are behavioral changes that your organization and people need to make in order for that remote work to be successful. Remote work requires purposeful and planned communication, especially with your manager. Otherwise, we risk miscommunications or no communication at all. So a focus on mutual trust and buy-in is going to make all the difference with your success. Again, in this webinar, I'd like to go over some things regarding working from home that I think will be helpful for veteran remote workers as well as new ones. I'll set you up for success and get you ready to be as effective as possible while working from home. Topics today include the following. I'm going to talk about how to create a good workspace, one that's going to work the best for you with the tools that you're given. How to set up your home office. This can be a challenge sometimes, and my goal is to get you feeling a little bit better about it and something that's going to work for you. I'm also going to talk about how to maintain a routine. I think this is a really important part of working from home, and I'll dive into that a little bit. Also, another really challenging part is to find that work-home balance. So I have a few things to offer that might get you thinking about how you can achieve that. Next is communication. I'm going to talk about the use of online meetings. Along with those online meetings comes meeting etiquette, a part that's really important, especially if you're attempting to work remotely, just for the most successful meeting that you can possibly have. Also, how to stay motivated. This can be challenging when you're working from home. We can have a lot of different distractions and be tempted by a lot of the things that are around us. So I'm going to talk about some of the best ways that you can stay motivated. Additionally, collaboration. Very, very important part of working from home. And then there's maintaining work relationships. This part is one that you might not have thought about very much, but it's a really important part. I think you're going to find that working from home will make you think about how much time you actually spend with your coworkers. And sometimes these work relationships are a lot of fun and they can make your workday that much better. Not everybody has that experience, but I really just want to talk about how to maintain some of those relationships and be the most successful while easing anxiety. Because during these times, this can be really stressful. We're trying to balance things, we're trying to make things work, and we're still trying to keep our jobs. The first thing I'd like to talk about is let's start at the beginning. Let's create a good workspace. We want to make it free from interruptions. Basically, set up a productivity station that has all the things that you're going to need to keep on task. Even if you're limited on space, ideally find a bright spot where you can focus on projects and your to-do items, where you're going to be as free from distractions as possible. Yes, this may be difficult, and you may need to experiment with what works best for you. Next is a dedicated space. Now, this could be your kitchen table, it could be part of a guest room, a corner of the basement, as long as you're not interrupted or distracted, and you can try to achieve that work mode. If you find yourself curling up on the couch or hanging out in bed, this can encourage rest and relaxation, not exactly motivation and drive, and this can mean the difference between productivity and distraction. Next is remember ergonomics. A good supportive office chair at the right height is going to do wonders for your health. Consider things like your monitor distance and the height of that monitor. Also, keyboard and mouse placement. These are just little things, and we want to make our workspace as similar to what you're accustomed to, so your body's just going to be that much happier. If you're beginning to get sore or you feel some numbness, get headaches, don't forget to stretch and take care of yourself. Next, with creating a good workspace is actually paying attention to lighting. Remember, you're going to be making some video calls, so you don't want to sit with the window behind you. Instead, turn around and face the window if you can, and you're going to look a lot nicer. You're going to be lit nicely. Otherwise, you're backlit and you just look like a silhouette. Not to mention, with natural light, you can enjoy some of those benefits if you have that ability. And sometimes the only place might be the corner of your basement. If that's the case, consider getting a daylight bulb or a lamp that's going to be helpful and beneficial for you, and take frequent breaks for your health. Next is setting up your home office. Ideally, your home is going to have a good internet connection. This is important, especially when you're trying to make video calls and you're trying to manage files, sometimes even larger files. We're going to be using a lot of cloud-based documents and remote connection. And sometimes your internet connection could fail or it's not available. Maybe you don't have great internet at your house. So consider sometimes using a hotspot with your phone, and you can gain access to your cellular data. Obviously, this is kind of a last resort, and watch your data plan, but it can definitely save the day if needed. Then there are things like powering up your space. Consider how you're going to plug everything in. Find an outlet. My best advice is to get a surge protector. This is going to protect your electronics, and it's also going to give you about 6 different outlets on the strip. Sometimes they have a little bit more, but typically it's 6. And obviously this is going to be helpful for making sure that everything is plugged in and functioning. Then I'd suggest trying to get your hands on a good headset and mic. Bluetooth or USB ones are probably the best. I also think it's a good idea to test out your setup. Ideally, maybe make a few test run meetings with some coworkers. Most video conferencing tools include phone numbers to dial in as a backup, just in case that internet fails or your computer's not working right. It can be really frustrating. You don't want to miss that meeting. So just have that backup. That phone number, again, can be really helpful just in case things aren't connecting properly. Having a plan B is always a good thing to fall back on when technology fails. It's inevitable. It's going to take some practice. And eventually, I think you're going to find something that works best for you. Then there's the video camera. Not only you're going to be participating with audio, but it's totally recommended, sometimes expected, to have a video camera on during those meetings. So there are a variety of reasons why you'd want to do this, and I'll be talking about some of those points shortly. Using a built-in camera or a mic on your laptop will usually do the trick. If you have a desktop computer, you might want to get an external video camera that sits on top of your monitor, and position that camera in such a way where the lighting that I was talking about earlier is going to make you look professional and alert. And sometimes the camera being low can be unflattering if you worry about that type of thing, but the fix is easy. Just find a way that you can raise that camera up to maybe an eye level, and even stage your background so you can feel good about what other people are seeing. One suggestion I have is to maintain a routine. Get up, get dressed. Consider dressing as if you're working in the office. Wearing sweatpants at home is tempting, but you may have video calls, like I said, so getting dressed in work clothes is a huge deal. And for some people, even the act of putting on dress shoes or an item with a company logo on it, something that can trigger your brain to go into work mode. Also, it's going to let other people know, like kids and roommates, family members. Dressing in very casual clothes like pajama pants can affect your mood, which could leave you less focused and alert. I think you'll feel better knowing that you've readied yourself for the day. Also, don't neglect that morning routine. Whether it's a morning run, walking the dog, catching up on the news, keep that morning routine if you can. Resist the urge to lay in bed, grab your laptop, get right to work. Take that shower, get ready as you would any other day, and dress for work. Your morning routine may have changed pretty dramatically recently, so be sure to communicate any needs or adjustments in time that should be made if your routine involves getting other people ready, or even just keeping them occupied for the day so you can get your work done. Next, I'm going to suggest don't skip lunch. When you get busy or distracted, you often forget to take meal breaks. Manage your time at your home office with the same respect that you would if maybe you're driving into the city for a traditional workday. You might even have the ability to be more flexible with your day, but still sticking to a routine. These things are evolving. As I mentioned, you're going to find what works best for you. And sometimes this is going to just include planning meals, keeping things in check. This is going to be hugely helpful for you. Yes, it's tempting to snack all day, work through lunch, but just remember, it's really important to take breaks. Take breaks on a regular basis, even if it means taking the dog for a walk in the middle of the day. Do it. If you're lucky enough to have a space that you can walk away from, close the door. Again, do it periodically if you can. Also, reward yourself for completing tasks. Even the most mundane tasks, if you complete them, you can feel good about it. It can be beneficial. Stretch, stand up, work a little bit standing up. Do what you need to do. Give yourself a well-deserved break. And just be sure to take care of yourself during these times. Then, of course, we have our work-home balance. One thing that I really stress is to schedule blocks. Try to keep a regular schedule if possible. And maybe your routine requires an 8 to 5 workday. You could assign 4 solid hours of uninterrupted concentration, possibly short bursts of it, which in one way, a lot of us can find that that's really productive for us. Regardless, make an attempt to be consistent to find out what works best for you. Utilizing your calendar to let people know when you're busy, that need to have uninterrupted time. Don't be afraid to block your calendar off so that you have some me time, some focus time. And that's going to prevent people from scheduling meetings at that time. There are going to be a lot more meetings online. And if you just carve out some time and schedule those blocks, show your free busy time, share it with others, hugely beneficial when working from home. The next one, which I think is really important, is to schedule some social time. Yeah, we're focusing on how to be most effective from home, but there's this really important social piece that isn't always talked about. Getting up to get some water at work or getting some lunch is often a time when you socialize with people at work. We have work friends. After all, we spend a good part of our day with these people. This is true for all remote workers, but it's especially critical for employees or those of you who've been abruptly transitioned from your office. All of a sudden, you're working from home. Even some small talk with your coworkers throughout the day, that can be beneficial and help you, and in the end, be more effective overall. Be sure to reach out, maintain relationships in your own social circle. Yes, this can be people you work with, but also don't forget all the other friends that you have in your life. Many of us are very social beings, and we need to have that. So this is a really important part of having that work-home balance, to schedule in some social time. Then we have this challenge of avoiding distractions. In all reality, it's up to you to try to control your personal disturbances. So I'm going to suggest resisting the urge to fold clothes during a conference call. Consider setting up a do not disturb window of time where you can work freely without those unnecessary interruptions that many of us are just going to expect. Even consider putting up a sticky note on your door. Could be your office door, could be your front door of your house. Just let other people know that you need some focus time. A lot of people are also going to be tempted by the TV, even accessing social media, having your phone there while working. You owe it to yourself to try to separate from that. Allow certain times when you do it. This can be one of the most difficult parts of working from home, those distractions. Here's another challenging one. It's important to create and set boundaries when you work from home. Don't let others infringe on your professional work time. Whether it's someone at the door, your friends texting you, try to let them know that you're working. Set those boundaries. Put up a sign, like I mentioned, silence your phone during those periods of time. And don't feel guilty when you're prioritizing your time. The point of this webinar, remember, is for me to help you be more effective and be as effective as you can be. And certainly there are times when boundaries are blurred. If you have kids, roommates, pets, you can be challenged when they're loud or the cat jumps up on your keyboard. And these boundaries can be really difficult to make. My suggestion is do your best, find out what works best for you and your work from home situation. And since you work at home, sometimes family and friends think that this means that you're always available. And you might need to set boundaries with those people as well by explaining your availability to them. Unplugging is more important than you think, and you're going to need to create those boundaries that are going to help separate your work from your regular life. Otherwise, you can feel burnout, you can feel social isolation. Sometimes you can even feel depression. So remember, all of these things I'm telling you are going to be helpful in trying to accomplish your work, but also still be a family member, still be a citizen, still do what you need to do on a daily basis. Communication is key. Connect with your teammates. Not only do we need to communicate with those around us, especially in shared spaces, but we need to communicate with our coworkers often, at least with your managers. And if you're a manager, at least with your staff. Let other people know what's up during your day. Just say hi, maintain some sort of connection. You're going to be available, and communication dynamics for remote workers are totally different than for those people who are working together in an office. So be cognizant of that, connect as much as possible. In my opinion, a byproduct of this increased communication is also increased mutual trust, which I think you're going to find to be really beneficial when you're working from home. Then, if you can, reply quickly. One thing that can be frustrating for you and your coworkers is when someone doesn't reply right away. You can't exactly go over to their desk, ask face-to-face, get a question answered, get some clarification. This doesn't mean that you need to instantly reply, but if someone reaches out to you via chat, it usually means that it's something quick or a check-in. And I'd suggest paying attention to those, making yourself available with a quick response or an acknowledgement. With Microsoft Teams, even a simple reaction like a thumbs up is just going to indicate to people that you've seen it. Also, chatting tools are often going to show the sender that you've read that message or not, and it's not exactly good etiquette to leave them unread. Have a morning scrum, a quick little meeting with your team. This can be one of the most important times of the day, believe it or not. I'll give you a real-life example. My team and I meet every morning at 9 a.m. We meet on Teams. Great communication hub. We find that all the things we need are right there, including having these videos. Before we worked from home, we'd stand up together in the hallway, we'd discuss what's going on, check in with each other, share what you're working on, even share about what's going on in our lives. And now that we've been working from home, we've been able to use Teams meetings every morning and accomplish the same thing. And I have to admit, I love it. I feel connected with those people. It's a great way for me to jumpstart my day. And we celebrate our successes. We keep it positive. This also gives leadership an opportunity to help on specific items. In fact, it's also a great idea to have another end-of-day meeting to clearly wrap up the day with upcoming or outstanding items. And as I've mentioned before, use that chat software. Sometimes you might need to send an email, and if it gets buried in someone's inbox, that can be frustrating. You don't hear from those people right away. Chatting can be quick, a less formal type of communication that's going to work for you. Often I've started chatting with my manager, then we quickly move to a voice or video call. We can share our screens, we can be successful in sharing what's going on. These can be totally unscheduled, so remember that advice I gave you earlier about dressing for the job. This is going to be really important for those ad hoc meetings. Use online meetings. Create a virtual workspace. Take advantage of the tools, like I said, that you already have. Show your screen. You can use virtual whiteboards, collaborate. Tools like Teams allow users to have a hub for their communication, for their collaboration. And you have these tools available in a virtual environment. And now that you're working from home, you're really going to find the benefits of using this virtual workspace. In my opinion, it's important to document more than you'd expect. Having clear documentation is going to help clarify and help you remember those important items. I use OneNote to keep track of meetings, and even within Teams, you're going to find that there are shared meeting notes. That's an option, and then everybody's going to be able to see them. Share those action items. Once you have these notes, don't be afraid to share them with your team. These online notes can be available to everyone in the meeting, like I just mentioned. Have a spreadsheet. You can have that up with a list of tasks. Share the progress of a project. Check items off your list. Sharing these action items is a huge part of making your work from home experience actually work and work well. Then we have recording meetings. Taking notes is obviously a great idea, but consider how easy it is to record the meeting. By recording meetings, you and your coworkers can go back, check it out later, and if you need to revisit something that maybe you've missed, it's there. There are also features like transcription in a variety of different languages. And for accessibility, sometimes even turning on live subtitles during your meeting can be hugely helpful. Teams meetings, for example, can be recorded. They're automatically uploaded to Stream, which is where most of your company's recordings and videos will live. And with Office 365, it's really easy to quickly access, search for content in a meeting. Even just if you're searching for words, the transcript is totally searchable, and you can find what you need very quickly. I'd like to share with everyone this video that many of you may have already seen, but it's funny and kind of painful to watch at the same time. We have someone who is trying to have a very important video call, and his daughter comes running into the room, and you've got to love her confidence on this kid. Anyway, you can see how well he's handling his professionalism, and without criticizing the situation too much, there are things that some of us can do to prevent this from happening. In his case, maybe a lock on the door would help, but there's now a feature in Teams where you can blur the background. It focuses on you and the outline of your silhouette, keeps that sharp, but blurs out everything else. It does eliminate some distractions, but as you see, we can only do the best we can. He maintained his professionalism, he carried on, and I definitely admire him for that. Practice good meeting etiquette. Use mute. This is seriously going to be your best friend and make your meeting experience a whole lot better. In fact, I think it's going to benefit everyone if you mute your microphone unless it's necessary for you to turn it on and talk. Working from home does present challenges regarding noise and interruptions. It could be your pet demanding attention, kids or family members barging in, even your neighbor deciding to mow their lawn when you're trying to conduct or participate in a meeting. Use that video. To me, as I've mentioned, this one's a biggie. We have the technology that we need to conduct online meetings. And one of the best ways to have a good meeting and to have good meeting etiquette is to turn on that camera. It can be weird at first, trust me. You'll get used to it pretty quickly, and it can even be kind of fun to see everyone's face. Also, having that video camera on allows you to engage more with your coworkers, see those nonverbal cues, and see engagement. It's way easier to tune out on a voice-only meeting. So just make sure you're not laying in bed or the TV is blasting from the other room. As I mentioned before, one challenge that's presented is your meeting space and your background. We've already gone over some tips on lighting. I showed you that video where the conference went wrong. Remember, that blur feature is in Teams. And sure, it's not going to help you if the cat jumps on your keyboard, but it's going to make for a potentially more professional looking background. With these ideas of good meeting etiquette comes being ready for impromptu meetings. I kind of talked about this before, but with the use of online meetings, you're likely going to find yourself needing to join even short meetings really quickly. And yes, chat software is good when you're in your pajamas still, but when you need to switch to video, like I said, be ready. These things can happen with very little notice. Also, be on time, just like you would in person. Especially at first, make sure that your audio and video setups are working properly. It can be frustrating when people are focusing on technical difficulties during meetings instead of starting on time. Sometimes you just might need to hang up and rejoin the meeting, or even try the call-in number that's listed. When you pop into a meeting late, it sometimes can lead people to wonder what you've been up to. Don't play with your phone. Treat the phone the same way you would at an in-person meeting. Silence it, put it away, or at least put it face down so it's out of sight. When other attendees can obviously see you checking out your phone at the meeting, it can be problematic, so resist that urge. Also, don't eat. I'd like to say maybe sipping a coffee or water or tea is acceptable, but when you're eating during a meeting, it can be loud, distracting, especially if you're working on that bag of chips. It'll look and sound unprofessional, especially when that camera is on. We're told to multitask all the time, be as productive as possible, right? The thing is, meeting times should be focused, and people will be able to tell when you're not paying attention, especially if they can maybe hear you typing. You'll be displaying a lack of attention, and that may come across as unprofessional. So it's important not to check out during these meetings. Actively participate, let other people know that you're there and you're engaged. Stay motivated and have a sense of accomplishment. Instead of dreading a tedious task that's been hanging over you, think about how you'll feel when it's done and over. So just keep reminding yourself that the faster you get that task over with and completed, the sooner you can enjoy the benefits of being finished. Some people even report starting their day with something as simple as making their bed to feel a sense of accomplishment first thing. I know this might sound silly, but it really isn't. To me, a jump start and feeling accomplished is just going to make a lot of difference. Also, I'd suggest tracking your tasks. Try using something like Microsoft Planner. Keep yourself on track. Document these accomplishments. Invite others to join in or participate on certain tasks and hold yourself accountable. Create some sort of transparency and communication around what you're doing. Another idea is to create documents to outline your ideas. And these are going to align with next steps. And these documents are going to make sure that you and everyone on your team is on the same page. And finishing up those tasks in Planner is really satisfying to me. Find the best time. What time of day are you most motivated? Although I've been talking about keeping a routine, it definitely takes practice. You'll need to find what works best for you and your work from home situation. Sometimes it's not ideal. It's difficult. Let's not pretend it isn't. Maybe you work best in the mornings or late afternoons. It's up to you to find the best time to work and take advantage of it. Again, it'll take some practice, but I encourage you to explore, find this new way of working. You might even find that you're more productive than you expected. If you're the type to take a walk during your workday, don't stop. Continue with some sort of activity. Even schedule in times for standing up and stretching. Don't forget to drink water. Don't forget about your mental health too. When we're working from home, we do run the risk, like I mentioned before, of burnout, feeling social isolation, feeling depressed. Reach out when needed and build some positive momentum. Sometimes it's easier said than done because when you're working from home, it means that people around you aren't there to remind you to take a break once in a while. Well, except for the dog. Maybe walking the dog is going to help in a lot of different ways. Also, collaborate and utilize the tools. As I mentioned earlier, it's likely that you have all the tools that you need available to you. The tougher part is getting them all to work for you. So use the collaboration tools that you have, maybe with Office 365, for example, to kickstart more collaboration. Maybe you're already doing that. And if you are, awesome. I find that working with teams works best with me because everything is in one location. I share cloud documents. I use them every day. I try to take advantage of the anywhere access capabilities with Office 365. It's OneDrive, SharePoint. Storing my documents in OneDrive, I can choose who I want to share them with. I can work with other people in real time. I can chat, share my screen. We've got all these different things I was talking about earlier. In fact, one of the best parts of collaborating is sharing your screen during meetings, having that ability to see the presenter's screen. This is going to allow everyone to be a part of what's going on. Instead of being in the same room, you're just viewing the screen remotely. It shouldn't feel entirely different. You're just going to be a little bit more isolated. You're going to be on your own instead of in that conference room. Next is maintain work relationships. If you're seeing colors next to other people's names like green, yellow, and red, I think you're going to be paying a lot more attention to that. In Teams, for example, green lets people know that you're available. People know the right time to contact you based on your online presence indicators. If you're showing up as yellow, well, that means you've been in idle for a period of time. And yeah, you might be taking a break and someone's trying to reach you, so just check your messages when you get back. That's all. When you're showing up as red, that means you're busy. This is going to link with your calendar and tell when you have meetings. And if you're presenting your screen, like I mentioned before, don't worry. People are going to see that you're presenting and you won't get those messages until later. Also, a simple and highly effective way to stay visible to others is to just let them know what's going on. It's natural for your teammates or your manager to get caught up in their own workday. We're all in this together. So it's up to you to remind them, create some awareness about your activities. Another thing to be aware of is when social cues aren't obvious in person. Like if someone's upset, stressed, they're having a bad day. I mean, we're still going to have these things happen. And the type of self-awareness that you need to attain, maybe some emotional intelligence, this is critical so that you can respond appropriately and understand their situation a little bit better. And sometimes just putting it out there publicly can be one of the best accountability tools that you can have, as in sharing what you're planning to do. And this is going to tie in with so many of the things that I've been talking about. Communicate, have daily updates, participate in those daily scrums. Try using something like Planner to keep yourself on track and start checking things off the list. And lastly, don't go dark. One of the biggest pitfalls to working remotely is to go dark. Being responsive as quickly as you can is another form of visibility and maintaining those relationships. So if somebody asks a question, maybe on Teams, the faster you get back, the more visible you seem. And that's not to say you should constantly be available at all hours, open to interruptions, but quick responses are going to allow people to see that you're hard at work. It's natural when you're working from home, somebody can't walk by your desk and check on you. So find ways to be present as much as possible. Working from home isn't necessarily easy or starts out perfectly. So it'll take some practice and determination, some self-discovery to sort out what works best for you and for your team. It's easy to get distracted by personal matters when you're working from home because you're so much more accessible to people outside of your work life. There isn't a magic formula for working from home, but I've shared with you some of what I think is good information when it comes to finding out what works best. I hope that you've picked up some tips and tricks and that I've got you thinking about how to be the most effective that you can be while working from home.